Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth.
Hey guys, welcome to Oxford from the Inside, the good, the bad, but always the truth. Today we're joined with Ella and Jacob. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Ella. I am a second year mathematician here at Trinity, and we're going to talk about interviews.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm a third year mathematician, also at Trinity.
And yeah, as Ella mentioned, today we're going to be talking about the what is like the maths interviews, what the process is like, and just really getting these two guys' perspectives on what their maths interviews is like and advice for that. And we're also going to go through a little mock interview later on. So definitely stay tuned because this episode is going to be quite interesting for anyone who's applying for maths for Oxford or Cambridge. So starting off with the logistics side, when are interviews for Oxbridge applicants? If you want to start us off, Jacob.
Yeah, so the kind of applications timeline for like Oxford and Cambridge is a little bit before the universities. So where this fits in is I think it's like normally towards the start of October, you have to apply on UCAS with like your personal statement and references and things like that. Then you'll register and sit the math admissions test, which is the entrance exam for Oxford, as well as some of the universities. And then you'll usually be, if you are successful at that, you'll be invited for interview, usually towards the start of December. It's usually the first week in December. And so that's kind of how that fits in the timeline. You tend to hear back kind of early January, whether you have an offer or not.
Mm. And Ella, do you want to talk us through and like what the logistics and like how the interviews are structured, like what's the day-to-day life for interviews? Let's start with like when we weren't in COVID times, so what it was like for us.
So when you get invited for interview, I think you're told about 2 weeks before. And for maths, you have 2 interviews at the college you applied to, and then one or two interviews at a second college that gets randomly assigned to you, so that you have an opportunity to show the tutors what you can do, even if maybe 1 or 2 didn't go so well. Which means you'll be there for a total of 4 days. You stay 3 nights. And it's a really nice experience actually, because you get to know all the other applicants. You spend a lot of time in the JCR of the college you applied, so the junior common room. They put on loads of events for you, so you have current students there as well from loads of different subjects who will take you to G&D's, which is the ice cream here, the biggest ice cream store chain. And it's a really good time. And you have interviews. They are about 20 minutes to half an hour long, scheduled for you when you arrive. And then at any point, if there's a college that wants to see you as well and is considering you, you'll just get a call and they'll say, hey, come down to St. Cat's, come down to Pembroke, we'd like to see you. It can be anything from like half an hour's notice to them scheduling it for the next day. So yeah, it's a really fun experience. They really try to keep you calm and make sure that you have things to do, even if it's quite nerve-wracking.
Yeah, because I applied twice, and like, yeah, the interview process is like so fun. Like it's like a holiday. You just like turn up, you get told that you have to be at a certain place at a certain time, and anything outside of that time is just like up to you. And it's just like really like a holiday. Like it's just really nice. There's loads of other people, and yeah, I get to meet them, and you're there for like 3-4 days. And I know, yeah, I personally took the most of it, and I really enjoyed it. And like I know some people who didn't get in, but I'm still like close friends with them now because like we went through that experience together. So yeah, I definitely plan on applying. Definitely see it as like a opportunity to like really enjoy and like stress relief. I personally didn't like spend my time during the interviews to like continue to revise just because I wanted to like de-stress my mind and then like leave it for the interview. Jacob, do you want to? Go on?
Sorry. What's a really nice thought is that my teacher told me before I came that it's your chance to see if you like Oxford, and the tutors, as well as the tutors' chance to see if they want to work with you. So you should, it's a real it's an undergrad experience because you're living in student dorms, you're meeting all the other people you might be studying with, and you get to meet your tutors who are going to be teaching you. So it's a really good time to see if you are going to enjoy the experience as well.
Definitely. And Jacob, can you tell us like what we know so far about what interviews will be like for this time round for like during the pandemic times?
Yeah, so whilst I think details still haven't been finalized, I quickly asked my tutors what they knew about the situation. So I think all interviews will be remotely. So unfortunately, you won't be able to travel down to Oxford this year. So like that's potentially good if you're an international student as well, because they do sometimes conduct interviews remotely. So all of the interviews will be remotely, video calling. There's potential talk for like iPads to be sent to schools so you can write on those and like screen share your solutions. But depending on how feasible on that is, it may also be the approach of just holding paper up to the camera, or if you have a mobile phone, taking a picture and putting it in the chat. So I'm pretty sure the university will send out like a really, really comprehensive like interview guide as well in terms of like the technology. And I would just say make sure you're like prepared and familiar with the setup before you start the interview.
Yeah, it's definitely true.
Yeah, so I also think there's like the potential for like some social events to be run online, which I think would be a nice break between interviews.
No, yeah, for sure. It's definitely useful as well for useful advice for this year's applicants. Is the interview structure any different between Oxford and Cambridge? Jacob, if you want to take the lead on that.
Yeah, so like traditionally, without the coronavirus pandemic, so Oxford interviews are you stay in Oxford for a couple of days. I think at Cambridge it's usually just done on a single day. So in my opinion, that's a bit less nice. You kind of have less of a chance to explore the city.
No, yeah, for sure.
But in terms of like the style of questions, I imagine they're pretty similar.
Yeah, no, I agree. In terms of the actual interview, I don't know enough about the interviews to distinguish differences. I think they are quite similar. There probably are differences, but I think I imagine they're very similar because I know people who apply for Cambridge, and from what they said, the interviews seemed, I know, mainly about maths. So how did you both prepare for your interviews, starting with Ella?
So I mainly firstly made sure that I was kind of on top of all of the A-level work, that I knew and really understood everything that I'd been learning in school. And also after having prepared for the entrance exam you have to sit before, it makes sure that you're really on top of all of the concepts. And then kind of taking the lead from the MAT in terms of the style of questions being a lot more problem solving than A-level questions will be, which is more like, this method and I'll apply it. I just kept doing MAT style questions. I did quite a few step questions, which are the Cambridge Maths entrance exam, which is like a step beyond MAT, also because you sit it 8 months later, so you have more time to prepare. And working through those was really helpful because it's more problem solving and it teaches you more to kind of figure out where to start a problem and how to approach it than kind of recognizing, oh, this is the method, I'm just going to do it. And that was really helpful. And then talking it through to people. So my best friend studies history and I would just sit her next to me and be like, okay, this is how I think I should do this question. And I would explain to her what I was doing and she would just sit and stare blankly and be really annoyed. And then I'd buy her a hot chocolate. But it was really helpful to talk to someone and explain my thinking, because that's something that, you don't really get to do in school. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, that's interesting. You took Richard Feynman's way of learning, like being able to teach someone who doesn't know anything about the subject, and if you can teach it to them, that means you probably understand it really well.
I don't know how good a job I did it. I did it like I don't think she got it by the end. So I just it's good to have a person there, a little bit like gets you comfortable with the idea of like talking through maths out loud.
But I definitely agree. We're talking about a chemistry interviews podcast recently, and definitely like practicing talking about your subject with someone is so helpful because you're going to be doing that in the interview, and having experience doing that beforehand is definitely very useful. So before we go on to how you prepare for the interviews, Jacob, I just want to talk about so I did maths and further maths, and I did quite well in my grades, but I remember when I was thinking about applying for a university, I just never considered maths because when I went to the STEP classes that my sixth form college held, there's just something about uni maths, like the STEP exams and like the kind of questions and like the math challenge questions, that just sort of gave you that feeling that you look at the question, and I just felt like, and a lot of other people felt the same as well, have this feeling of I have no idea what to do, and it just seems like it's like that Hannah Sweets question. If I don't know, maybe everyone's too old for that, or maybe I'm too old for that, but there was a question in GCSE and my GCSE maths, and a lot of the students complained because they just looked at it and they just thought, I have no idea, no idea where even to start. And I felt like that with that was the reason why I didn't want to uni maths, because I felt like the problem solving just seemed so out there that I would just be like soul destroyed to like even try. So how do you guys have any advice for students who are applying for maths and who feel like when they try the STEP questions, they look at the STEP questions, they just have like no idea where to even start? If you want to start, Ella.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely relate. I think that's what happens with most of the questions on my problem sheet now. Like, I'll watch the lectures and I'll like make sure I understand the concepts, and I look at a sheet and I'm like, how, what, where is this going? And I think that that's something that we're scared of in school, because in school we're taught to like know that if you properly know like all the things you've been taught, then you'll look at an exam and just do it and ace it and get 100%. And that's just not how maths really works. Like, it's just a great subject. It's just full of puzzles and you never finish learning. And as a subject, there are so many different ways to go about every question, so many different ways to do a proof. And we'll be in a tutorial in first year doing like questions that have been on this problem sheet for the past 10 years. And all the 6 of us will have like a different way that we went about the question. And I think it's just a feeling that can seem really scary and overwhelming when you're at school, because you're taught to think in that like very rigid way. But when you start, if you try to stop being afraid of the feeling, and if you know that you just enjoy the puzzling and you love that feeling when you get it in the end and it clicks and you're like, yeah, that was fun, like that was a challenge and I got there, and like, you like that, then maths is for you. Like, that's not a feeling to necessarily be afraid of, and it's really normal. And I felt so unprepared for a maths degree, and I felt so unprepared for my interviews, and like, it's a really fun degree now, and I think that's a really normal thing that you can learn to kind of deal with and not be afraid of.
Would you say that if you were to if someone was to try to be resilient and keep trying, that they might discover a passion for maths that they might not have discovered if they gave up straight away?
Yeah, definitely. There's like, we all like things we're good at, and we don't like things we think we're bad at. And if you look at these questions and you're kind of scared by not getting it straight away or something, like very much I was, start of me doing STEP questions was not good. I was like panicking because I thought I couldn't do it. I thought I was bad at maths. But yeah, if you stick with it, you realize that like, it's just a subject that, it's not about how good you are. It's just like, if you enjoy it and you want to study it and you're having fun doing these problems, then that's what you should study, and you shouldn't be afraid of it. And like, resilience is definitely a big thing in the degree and in interviews and just in life. Like, sticking with it is always going to pay off.
For sure. What about you, Jacob? What's your take on what we've spoke so far?
Yeah, I think it's very true. I think it's often quite hard to articulate to people what exactly university maths is like. But I think like that kind of feeling is the distinction between A-level and university in a nutshell, where I feel like A-level and GCSE questions are kind of more algorithmic and kind of like standard in your approach to the questions, in the sense that you can kind of learn how to solve them. Whereas I think like the degree definitely brings out this more creative, like exciting problem solving dynamic to that. And that's something that I personally really love. And I think these questions are great at taking you out of your comfort zone. And like that barrier is initially quite high, that like intimidation by a question can often be quite high. But I think if you stick with it, spend some time to think about it and solve it, it's a really, really satisfying feeling, and it's very rewarding, because you get a lot out of it. And that's exactly what the degree is here. The work is very, very difficult, but once you break, and oftentimes you can make really big conceptual leaps by being stuck.
Also, like more pragmatic. Are there answers to the past step papers for like when you're for someone who's going through step papers? Do they have like access to answers?
Jacob's
do you
nodding, but I never found any, so maybe Jacob's the one to answer this.
Yeah, so for like the MAT, there is definitely for the MAT there is like an official MAT website where they have answers, and a really good resource actually is the Oxford Maths YouTube channel, uh, where in the run up to the MAT, like the MAT coordinator will do live streams and walk through questions. For STEP, I can't remember if there was like official answers, but I remember there's like a well published book that you could find online. I maybe called advanced problem solving or something to the extent of that kind of walks through 30 or 40 step questions.
Oh yeah, that one is good. I think it's only I think it only does step 1. I'm not sure if it goes through to like the harder ones. But I think one thing when you're doing step papers is to go on Stack Exchange. Like Math Stack Exchange, the website is full of like really, really helpful people. You'll definitely like with step questions, you'll probably find the question on there somewhere or something similar, and you kind of piece together the answer. And that's also, yeah, that's just a really helpful place to look for maths help. And you can post your own questions and people will answer in like an hour. It's really good.
Oh wow! Oh nice. Damn. That'd be nice if there's a chemistry version of
that. There is a chemistry version of that.
There is a chemistry version of that.
I don't know if it's that helpful, but there's a chemistry version. It's called Stack Overflow.
God, it's 3 years too late, but I'll check it out then for my finals. So talking about interviews, how are both of your interviews starting with Jacob?
Yeah, so in the end, I ended up having 4 interviews. So I applied to Worcester College, where I had 2 interviews, and I had one at St. Catherine's College, and then the final one at Trinity. So maybe it's just kind of worth mentioning is that like the interviews generally are like the same between colleges, but some of the bigger colleges will make you do different things. So like when I arrived to Worcester, they gave me like a sheet of questions that I worked through, and then my first interview was like me talking about the solutions that I've had to those questions, and then them pushing me a bit further. So I felt like my first interview was the hardest, just because it was kind of unfamiliar to me, the nature of the interview. And I made 1 or 2 mistakes. Like I remember, I think I forgot the formula for like the surface area of a cone or something like that. I kind of felt embarrassed to ask a little bit, but it's totally, yeah, it's totally okay. And there's little things I think can often stress people out, but that's fine. And then I had a second interview at Worcester, which I felt like went better. That one was just like maths problems. I had a third one at St. Cat's, which I felt like was my hardest interview in terms of like the difficulty of the question. But I think that's still one of my favorite interview questions to date. And then I had a last minute interview at Trinity where I was like about to get on the train to go home, and then they rang me and were like, "Oh, we forgot to tell you that you have an interview scheduled at Trinity." So like I just sprinted across Oxford City Centre and I went to go do that one.
Nice. And that's pretty cool. And then you got into Trinity, so it's good that you didn't get on the train. So how was your experience in Mallow?
So I also applied to Worcester, so I got that sheet when I arrived there. And I was also not very in the interview mindset. I was very in the school, like, I have a problem sheet to do. Let me like do all the questions exactly how I know how. And I had like page-long solutions of many integrals, and to every question there had been like some sort of trick that made it really quick and trivial. I didn't see any of the tricks. So my first interview was quite humbling, where I thought I'd like done quite a few of the questions, and then the interview was just like, right, did you see that like that case was completely unnecessary, like you can rule that right off the start. So one thing that was really nice, I think I was really nervous, but all the interviews were just really friendly and wanted to make you feel calm so that you could actually like show them what you can do, because they know you're nervous. I also made really stupid mistakes. I remember I had to sketch the graph of e to the x squared, and I drew it right, and then I labeled the y-intercept as 0. And Richard L was just like, "Are you sure that's the y-intercept?" I looked at him and I was like, "Yeah." And he asked again, and I was like, "Yeah, it's 0. Look, I wrote it right there." And it's awful, but they know you're nervous, and I think he forgave me, hopefully, because I'm here now. Then I second interview at Worcester, which was very early in the morning, which was not good for me, and the question was definitely the hardest there, and I had some problems like kind of putting the algebra together with the kind of geometrical representation of it. But yeah, and then I had my third interview at Trinity after that, and I'd really messed up the one in the morning, and I was like, okay, guess I'm not going here, that's fine. And I went and got myself a sandwich from Taylor's, and I wandered around Oxford for a bit, and I was just really calm, and it was sunny. And then I went up to Melanie's office, which is up this like windy set of stairs, and then she came running in and was like, I'm so sorry, I just got back from lunch, but we're ready for you, it's going to be really fun. And everything was just, yeah, it was really calm and happy, and Melanie gives you chocolate in the interviews, so it was a really, really good experience in the end. And yeah, being so like calm and relaxed, and the fact that Melanie's so friendly and everyone was, yeah, it made it a really fun experience. It definitely made me work better. I think I work well when I'm calm. So nice. Yeah, I had a really fun time in the end.
Yeah, there's quite a nice few important things that you said there. But anyone who's wondering who Melanie is Ella and Jacob's maths tutor and their interviewer. Yeah, she gives you guys chocolates for your tutes and interviews. So if you're not sure what college to choose and you're applying for maths, there you are. Definitely. You should try apply to Trinity.
After Christmas, she brings you chocolate from Switzerland, so there's a level up as well. Definitely.
Damn.
Definitely a good time.
Of course, Swiss chocolate. And I think it's a really important thing that you said as well, that that you perform best when you're calm. I also thought that was like really important, trying to do things to keep myself calm. And for me, it was for my interview, thinking about the worst case scenario, and then realizing the worst case scenario wasn't that bad at all. So there's like, I know it was just nothing to really lose. And other people also say that you've got 20 minutes of like a world leading academic, and like trying to like use that time to like the best visibility. Like I remember in my interview, one of them was going quite well, and I actually asked quite a few questions, and I don't think they weren't questions of like, well, there were questions of like I didn't understand, but I wasn't nervous asking them because I was actually really interested in the answer. And I think when you get trying to go into like enjoying the conversation, and because I think interviews, I don't know if you guys had this for your maths interview, but I think with a lot of the interviews, they're quite representative of what our tutorials are like at uni. And a lot of the tutorials for, if not all the subjects, you don't know the answers straight away, and it is very much a conversation. You ask your tutor and you ask the interviewer questions, and I think it's good to ask questions and when you don't know things, to not panic, because when you do tutorials and if you get to get into Oxford and the teaching style, you ask lots of questions, and it is like a back and forth conversation. So yeah, if you do interview and you don't know, just ask, because that's very normal. I had a tutorial recently, and I asked lots of questions, as I do week in, week out. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to add before we go into our little mock interview?
Yeah, so
yes.
I think maybe I want to mention like a couple of little things that I think often people stress about at interviews. So the first thing is like what you wear to interviews in person or online doesn't matter. But for context, I think I just went to most of my interviews in like some semi-smart trousers and a jumper. But people going t-shirts and shorts or like full suits. But it really doesn't matter. They're judging you on your mathematical ability. I think a lot of people as well, like personal statements. I think for maths, there's not really that much emphasis on the personal statement. Like I personally was never asked once in any of my 4 interviews about my personal statement. But I do know that some tutors will ask you just like, oh, on your personal statement, it says you did X, Y, and Z. Can you tell me about it a little bit, just kind of warm you into the question. At the end, like the tutors will often ask you have like any questions about like Oxford or like maths in general. Don't stress about that. I think a lot of people tend to prepare like really technical maths questions, like, can you solve like this really hard equation for me that I'm stuck on? Like that's not really like that's just a genuine opportunity for you to just ask a question if you don't feel like you have to have anything intelligent prepared, but because they're judging you on your mathematical performance in the interviews.
Nice. No, I definitely agree with a lot of those things as well, especially with the what you wear. It's like whether it makes you feel comfortable. Yeah, because the more comfortable you are, the more natural and like comfortable you are, ironically, and then better you'll perform, hopefully. Should
I had a
we?
teacher at school who did when she was a PhD student at Oxford, she did some of the interviews, and she would always tell a story of someone walking into a classics interview in a Playboy bunny crop top, and they took her. So I think you're okay, whatever you wear.
Nice. Well, we love to hear it. Should we continue on to going through some example questions?